Back in October, I included a channel by the name of HiImMaryMary in my Halloween special. Back at that point in time, the series was still getting itself off the ground, and so I left you with an open-ended take in order to drive some traffic over there, since it's been so well done. The series has very much evolved since then, and a lot has played out, leaving me with some theories that I'd like to share with you regarding what this actually is. Tonight, we're going to touch on the major questions surrounding this channel. What exactly is happening in each video? Who is each character? And what is the significance of all of this? I hope you're ready, because it's time to dive into HiImMaryMary. For ease of clarity, I'd like to give a preliminary introduction to the major characters and locations that we'll be referencing back to. Throughout this video, aside from Mary, we'll be referencing characters that are titled Shadow Mary, the Shadow Man, the Darkness, Maria, and the Woman in White. Major locations that I'll be referencing are the house and the garden. The first 4 videos that we'll be touching on will focus on character introduction and world building, so be on the lookout for all of these. The first video in the series is titled Hello. In this, we're basically set up with the story that Mary is living alone in what she dubs is a copy of her parents' house. She claims that she's unable to leave and has no capability of interaction with the outside world. She's, strangely, alone on the internet and fully believes that she's presenting these videos to nobody at all. She's quite bored and drums up various mundane activities to keep herself occupied. Before the video's conclusion though, things begin to take a dark turn when she claims that things are different at night. That ending is when we're introduced to our first major antagonist, Shadow Mary. We'll be seeing her quite often throughout this series. The second video is titled Dislikeness, and the description reads, "What is so funny? Is it my face?" In this, Mary informs us that the house strangely restocks itself with food so she won't go hungry. Also, she won't smell, and the lights only work at night. Sometimes. Midway through the video, we're introduced to our second major antagonist, Maria. Maria seems to endlessly laugh at Mary, taunting her in the mirror with a sort of perfect mask that she will wear throughout the entirety of this series. It's evident that it gets to Mary, since right after we see Maria, Mary resorts to cutting the head off of one of her photos. Maria also seems to be plaguing Mary's mind, and this is shown when she's trying desperately to sleep but is unable to do so due to the endless laughter that fills her ears. The video then closes with the phrase, "I want to break all of the mirrors." In Goodnight, we follow Mary through some mundane activities as she tries to desperately keep herself occupied. It's evident that the house is beginning to get to her, since she claims that she's exhausted. The description of this video reads, "Paralyzed with fear, I looked into its face and I felt empty, cold, and numb. I felt dead. I'm so tired. There's no sense in being positive." We'll touch on what she means by this in a second. For now, I want to show you this scene where Mary seems to be crafting. It seems that she's making a collage of multiple people that also bear her name, but not herself. This will tie into a major theory that we'll dive into later. At the end, Mary appears to be attempting to rest, however, is interrupted by our first encounter with the Shadow Man. He seems to be someone that looms over Mary, but strangely doesn't lunge into and harm her. We'll be seeing him quite a bit throughout this as well. In this one, we're greeted with Mary hypothesizing that the lights will help at night. She's seen traversing around the house in order to make sure that every light is on. When she gets to the last room though, she's greeted by the Shadow Man who freaks her out. Right after this though, she claims that the light actually does not help at night and that the haunts in her house will carry out their torment no matter what. The end of this video gets quite interesting as well. Things begin to move on their own and Mary begins to freak out, repeatedly claiming, "No, not again." This is our first introduction to the darkness. It seems, at the end, to overtake her completely before she blacks out, ending the video. In worse, we join Mary as she explores her house in total darkness. She claims that everything just got so much worse, and the reason for this will be touched on momentarily. Mary then encounters Shadow Mary, whom promptly begins to chase her. When she finally stops banging on the door, Mary opens it up and begins quietly looking around. Once the light pans over Shadow Mary once more, she lunges at the camera before the video cuts to daylight and ends. This is significant at this point in the series since this is the first instance of the day-night cycle being disturbed. Since the house is so vastly different during the day versus at night, this natural interruption eventually seems to take a toll on Mary later on in the series.
Nope. Nope. Not again. And let's see.
In this one, we see Mary lounging around the house again. This time, she's making a map with notes on where and where not to go at nighttime. She claims that she's slowly gaining confidence to talk to us. However, she quickly shrugs that off as nonsense since she has no contact with anyone in the outside world at all. Another notable thing that we see her do is what's called her hourly check. She will periodically check the doors and windows to see if they're still locked, in sort of a desperate attempt to check if she can finally escape. Unfortunately, that isn't the case since anytime she does, they're always locked. We then begin to periodically see shots of Mary doing makeup. This is highly significant for one of the theories that we'll be touching on later as well, particularly the end scene that just might tell you everything that there is to know about this episode. It seems that Maria is getting to Mary pretty badly, and the end bit shows that Mary is unfortunately in denial, since she claims that "I'm doing well," when she clearly is not. In Sleepwalker, not much happens that hasn't happened already. We see Mary messing around with the Shadow Man, almost in a playful way. She talks to him before they begin running around the house. The ending takes an interesting turn though, when Mary is on her laptop after taking a rest. He begins to loom over her, before finally lunging into her for the first time, before the video ends. In Discovery, we greet Mary as she's hiding from Shadow Mary at night. We see her very eerily walk downstairs before we go down with her. Once we're down there, we seem to gather a second look at the Shadow Mary chase from earlier. In this, she finds her downstairs in the laundry room. Shadow Mary begins telling Mary that she's worthless, trying to get to her before initiating a chase, sending Mary sprinting upstairs and into a closet door that thrusts her into an underwater area. This is when we discover the garden. This episode is slower than the others, for good reason. The majority of the video shows Mary relaxing in an outdoor setting. The captions through the video tell a narrative explaining how quiet it is and that she could stay there for hours. This is the garden, and this represents the only area of solace that Mary's able to have as she endures the hell that looms back in the house. Everything seems to be going well until the very end when Mary seems to be thrust out of the garden and back into the house, almost as if she woke up.
Wait, what? The cell phone.
In this one, we open with Mary being taunted by the demons through the phone ringing multiple times and someone banging on the door. Mary believes that she finally has actual guests. However, there's little that she can do since she can't actually answer the door at all. After this, the camera seems to jump all over the house, resulting in a cat and mouse-like game between it and Mary. A notable point in this video is later on when we encounter Maria once more. She does something that's a little interesting. Maria is demon-like beneath her perfect mask, and this tells a lot about her character. She's perfect on the surface. She's the best version of Mary that Mary could be. However, when you peel back that surface layer, things aren't quite as they seemed. In this, Mary plays a game of hide and seek with Shadow Mary. During this though, she allows Mary to ask questions, and so she does. Shadow Mary seems to be throwing out dialogue, clamoring about how worthless Mary is and how she deserves to be locked up in this home. She even goes forth to tell her that she's repulsive and a stupid bitch.
I just don't get it.
You made us. Interesting.
I'll never care about you. They think you're funny. They think you're entertainment.
The major point that I want to touch on in this video is the very end. Throughout the entire video, Mary's poking around the garden, and it's also shown that Shadow Mary is unable to enter. When the video draws to a close though, we see our first sighting of the woman in white. We'll be seeing her again very shortly. In this last upload, we see Mary interacting with us on her laptop. It's almost as if it's an entirely new world for her, since she finally has access to seeing everyone in the outside world. During this though, Shadow Mary enters the frame and begins telling her how we don't care about her. Mary then tells us that we make this more manageable, implying that we are actually helping her. Later in the video, Mary claims, "I saw her again," the woman in white, and proceeds to the garden to encounter her.
Who are you? Are you going to talk to me? Hello? Oh, that's creepy. Oh my god. I can't lip read, I'm sorry. What are you saying? Oh god. Nope. Okay. Nope. I'm leaving. Nope, this is my place. You're not taking that away from me.
while we can't hear her, the woman in white appears to be saying, "Mary, you need to get out of there. Mary, you're not okay. You need help. Mary, can you hear me? You are not safe. Mary, Mary." Strangely, this mystery woman in white has arrived around the same time that Mary discovered us. With her silent dialogue, it's almost as if we bear a loose connection with her within Mary's mind. After this, Mary has a run-in with the Shadow Man and a sinister Maria that causes her to pass out. And there we have it. Up to this point in writing, that's where the series draws to a halt. At this point, you may be asking yourself what this all means. While my take isn't definitive, these are my personal interpretations of all the characters and locations that were presented to us. If you haven't made the connection by now, the house, to me, seems to represent Mary's mind in its entirety. The series opens up with her in what she calls a copy of her parents' house, thus leaving us to theorize that this is a copy of reality in her own mind. She's unable to leave this, and I believe that this represents the idea that her mind is a sort of prison for her, leaving her tormented by the many haunts that plague it. I want to touch on the day and night cycles as well. We previously established that the natural cycle of days and nights can be easily disrupted depending on the situation that Mary's enduring at the time, and I believe that, given their vast differences, daytime in the house represents mental solace in real life. She's able to be herself, poke around the house, and think clearly. At night, however, things begin to take a dark turn, and it seems that these are actual episodes of mental breakdowns, or an overwhelming sense of whatever emotion she's feeling at the time, whether it be fear, anxiety, depression, or humiliation. Early on in the series, Mary makes a claim that I believe supports this, saying that the days are getting shorter. This has led me to believe that her time of mental solace is becoming increasingly disrupted as these intense fears and emotions overtake her. The garden is an interesting one. I believe that it's a dreamlike area of solace for her. When inside, she's finally able to get away from the torment of the house. Her emotions, fears, and demons are all put to rest as she sleeps, and she can enjoy her limited time there before she's woken up and jolted back to consciousness. Shadow Mary is a prominent figure in the series. She's the first one that we're introduced to, and she carries a major role throughout the entire thing. I believe that Shadow Mary, given the name, represents the dark side of Mary's psyche. All throughout each upload, we can see Shadow Mary tormenting and instilling her with fear. This becomes prominent when she starts to directly talk to Mary, telling her that she's worthless and that Mary created them. Shadow Mary seems to represent a form of anxiety driven by direct fear, since we never truly know when we'll encounter her. The Shadow Man seems to always be there when Mary's already asleep or uneasy. He seems to thrive off her and finds great satisfaction through simply enveloping her with dread. Particularly through the sleeping scenes of the earlier episodes, the Shadow Man seems to represent anxiety in its entirety. Anytime that Mary's in a state of helplessness like sleep, he seems to make an appearance to mess with her, and anytime that he lunges or attacks her, she passes out, almost as if she becomes overwhelmed through an anxiety attack. Maria is everywhere, and her presence is given away through her sinister laugh that can be heard throughout the uploads. She seems to always be wearing a perfect mask and is always dressed up in a way to taunt Mary. Mirrors are a direct way for anybody to see themselves. Generally, there are self-imperfections that might be evident to you, however, others may not notice at all. When Mary looks in the mirror, she sees herself. However, she bears a massive weight of self-consciousness and humiliation when looking in the mirror or at her photos. Maria seems to leverage that humility and rubs it in her face in any way that she can. Maria represents the perfect Mary, instilling her with a feeling of worthlessness while, on the surface, being free of any cosmetic imperfections. The darkness seems to arrive at unexpected times, and I believe that this is a combination of all of the big three: the Shadow Man, Maria, and Shadow Mary. Anytime that the darkness consumes her, she passes out, unable to take it any longer. This could be a full representation of the plague that fills the house, the same house that we've determined to represent Mary's mind. The audience is an escape. In the later episodes, it becomes evident that Mary can finally see all of us and uses that to her advantage for feedback and advice on what to do. We could all be her coping mechanism, giving her the reassurance that she needs to overcome her inner demons. Shadow Mary hates it and constantly yells that we're liars and that we're simply watching her for entertainment. Without viewer interaction, Mary would likely feel completely alone and unable to overcome this. We're helping her, and each comment, like, tweet, and post helps her along as a guiding light through this darkness. I believe that the woman in white represents logic in Mary's right mind. She's only present in the garden, her only area of solace, and as we established in the later episodes, she tells Mary that she needs help and to get out of the house. With this, she now has an in-series guiding light to help her through her troubles, and strangely, since she's such a new character, she could have been created through the support and guidance that the audience has given her. We've given Mary help, and in turn, her stability and self-confidence are growing, allowing her to finally create a positive figment within her own mind in hopes of fighting back. Mary also has a blog, a Tumblr, and a Twitter account. In those, the audience is able to heighten their presence with Mary as she posts questions and extras, polling us on what she should do next or giving us encrypted clues on her next move. And with all of that, we're left with now. The series seems to very much be ongoing, and I believe that the purpose of the Woman in White will blossom in future uploads. Whether Mary becomes enveloped in the darkness or gains the ability to fight back at her demons will hopefully be determined in the near future. But for now, this is where I'll draw this to a close.